you find this place a place of rest for your soul. And welcome to Trish's brother Dalton. I've got that right. Trish's sister Sally is in palliative care. I'm just letting you know that. And her brother wanted to come and see the church where we're going to eventually do the service for her sister in the near future. So welcome, Dalton, to our fellowship. We will get to Isaiah chapter 9 and verses 1 to 7 in a minute or so, but I just want to remind the church that our Bible studies have finished for the year. Next week, instead of the Bible study, we will have a prayer meeting to which the whole entire church is welcome, whether or not you actually attend the prayer meeting or not. So the prayer meeting, you attend the Bible study or not. The prayer meeting will be at 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning here and Thursday evening at 7 here. So if you would not normally attend the Bible study, you are still welcome to come and join the prayer meeting. That will last about an hour and usually do our normal time. And that will finish our gatherings for the year at the Bible study groups. So that's next Wednesday at 11 in the morning or next Thursday at 7 p.m. here at the church. I don't know if it's an omen, the fact that the joy candle has been blown out. And in fact, the peace candle is the only one we got left. The only one we got burning is hope. It's too breezy in here to keep the candles alight. But today is the third Sunday of Advent. It's what they call the Joy Sunday. And the intention, the whole entire system of hope, peace, joy, and love, these are all man-made ideas for the weeks leading into. There's no biblical mandate that you do this. And the church, over its history, has traditionally chosen pink because pink is the color of joy, as opposed to purple, which is the color of mourning. Again, man-made ideas, but that's the tradition. And they choose joy kind of in the middle here because 2 weeks of mourning and pining is a bit too heavy. And so you want to stop and remember that there is some joy to come. And so we interrupt your regular scheduled programming of grief and mourning for a little bit of joy, and we'll get back to the tediousness of mourning next week when we think about love. But this week we're going to think about joy. Now, we're going to do our best to be joyful here this morning by thinking through these things. Joy to the world. Now, humbug, right? Because think about it for a minute. I said last week that if of all the things that are false advertising, peace on earth seems like the most false advertising of all. But if peace on earth is false advertising, then joy to the world is misleading marketing. Because you know and I know that there is not a lot of joy around the place. The world is full of glumness. There's no shortage of things that people can be glum about, including in this church, including me and anybody else that you meet. If you want to be a real killjoy, get the newspaper. That'll kill your joy real quick. I get the Weekend Australian every weekend, and there's not a lot in there that's pleasant. It's stuff and lots of complaining and grim news and so on. Maybe that's the reason I like it. I'm not sure. Now, most of you will know me, or who know me by now will know that I am not the most joyful guy. Compared to someone like Lynette, right? You could put the two of us together with chalk and cheese, and that's partly a temperament thing. I'm just choleric, and that's just my temperament, and also I have been diagnosed with a depressive condition, and so there's a bit of that. And so for me, joy is a struggle. I have to fight for these moments of joy because otherwise I'll just sink into the reality of the world. And so. For me, this is a bit of a problem, and I suspect for other people it's a problem. And one of the problems of being like the kind of guy I am is that joy is a fruit of the Spirit. So if I'm not joyful, and like other people, we have this depressive sense or this gloom, or I call it none of those things, I just call it being a realist. If we are like that all the time, does that mean we're not saved? Have we lost our salvation because we're not joyful all the time? It's a question that comes to my mind. And by contrast, is a super optimistic person really joyful or just deluded? Right? Because the world is not joyful all the time. And so I think about these things all the time when I think about joy because it jumps out at my face. I feel an accusing finger. Is joy only an emotion, or is it more? And is joy as a fruit of the Spirit? Does that mean only Christians are joyful? So there's lots of questions that run around in my brain when I think about joy. So we're going to try to explore this a bit this morning. And the means by which I intend to do this is to explore a little bit, before we get to the Bible, to explore a little bit of what C.S. Lewis, my favorite author, has to say about joy. You know the Chronicles of Narnia, that's the most famous thing that he wrote. And I actually that doesn't appeal to me at all. Fantasy stuff like that doesn't really appeal to me, but everything else he writes appeals to me. So I'm just weird that way. And all his nonfiction stuff. And one of the things he wrote was a thing called Surprised by Joy in 1955, which was a book that described his conversion experience. So it's not an autobiography, but a story of how he came to Christ. He went from an atheist to a Christian. And very early on in this book, he has this definition of joy, and he describes it as an unsatisfied desire, which is itself more desirable than any other satisfaction. So let me pick that apart. So he's saying that joy is an unsatisfied desire, and it's something that you actually want. You want this unsatisfied desire because it's more desirable than any other kind of satisfaction, because there's no satisfaction that will satisfy this desire. Okay, now I know I'm going to make it a bit even more clear than that in a second here. But this is his definition, that joy is an unsatisfied desire. It's a longing or an aching. So what he's saying is, in life, you get these glimpses of something that's extremely desirable. It pulls on your deepest yearnings and hungers. And it's something that you innately know that nothing in this world will ever satisfy. And it's those fleeting moments that he calls joy. Maybe you might picture it something like nostalgia, where you look at a photograph and you get this longing for this moment that you can never actually ever have again, or you hear a song and it takes you back to a place and you have this kind of ache. It's that kind of thing. So that's what he's describing as joy. It's that ache. That's the kind of idea. This aching and this longing for a better time that is long since past and can never be again. Think about this common human experience of that bittersweet longing for something that the present cannot satisfy. That's how he defines joy, that longing and that aching, and that longing is more desirable, he says. You'd rather have that than any attempts to satisfy it, because any attempts to satisfy it actually can't. So rather than chasing something that can't satisfy, dwell in that ache. That's the joy. That's his picture, okay? Now, I think he's wrong, but I think he's onto something. So even though I think he's wrong, I think he's on the scent of joy. And so I want to think about that here this morning. So the way I want to do it here is, this is a picture of the Christmas markets in Strasbourg. Now, I've never been to the Christmas markets in Strasbourg, but I kind of think I'd like to. And if you've ever been to any kind of Christmas market or any market in general, I want you to imagine that you're walking through this wonderland of a market. And you're passing all the trinkets and baubles and food stalls, and everything is wonderful. And as you walk past, the breeze goes by, and you get this aroma, this scent of something, some food, and you suddenly realize, boy, am I hungry. And that's whatever I'm smelling, that's what I want to eat. Right? So you head off in the direction and you're looking around and you cannot find the stall, and then you get another breeze. Oh, it's over there. And you walk through the whole entire markets, and no matter where you go, you cannot find this thing that has stirred your hunger. And so in the end, you eat bratwurst and sauerkraut. Now, I love bratwurst and sauerkraut, and it's actually quite delicious, but it isn't the thing that you were smelling, but it's going to have to be good enough. This is what C.S. Lewis is saying is joy, that whiff. That aroma that passes through the sudden moments of that longing that stir a desire and a hunger in you. He's saying that's joy. And I'm saying he's wrong. I don't think that that's joy at all. For him, joy then isn't always about satisfaction. It's about the pursuit, the longing for something that will satisfy this deep yearning and aching in our hearts. I'm saying that this longing, this aching, this nostalgia, if you like, is for something that this world cannot satisfy, is not joy, but it's a pointer to joy. It's reminding you of something that's joyous. And so my perspective is this way, that joy is closely related to hope, in that joy is the emotion we feel when hope is realized, when hope is fulfilled. A little later on, C.S. Lewis, in a different thing called The Weight of Glory, he says this: we remain conscious of a desire which no natural happiness will satisfy, a desire still wandering and uncertain of its object. Now, what he's saying is that we have desires, but we often don't know what we're longing for. And those desires that we don't know what we're longing for, what I'm calling those cravings, those nostalgic reminders of once was, is an echo of Eden. It's a common, what he's calling joy, I'm calling an echo of Eden, or a pointer to what was joyful. It's a reminder of what once was. It's mankind's innate common memory, our collective memory of a place or a time that used to be, a nostalgia, if you like, for a place of joy. And we get senses of it in this world from time to time that waft past us. And in those moments, we long for that joy, and yet nothing in this world will satisfy it. And so I think he was on to something, but I think he just missed it by a tad. Sorry, Mr. Lewis. We get these echoes from time to time, and it stirs a craving in us, a hope, if you will, for what it points to. Even if we aren't sure what it's pointing to, hope is the expectation that we will receive what is longed for. And so joy is not the echo, but the emotion we have when we receive what we hope for. And so we get these echoes, and it causes us to hope for something. And joy is the thought that the thing that I am going to hope for, I will one day receive. And when I receive it, then there's joy. That's the picture I'm painting here. And the Bible writers have said the same thing, at least one did. This is Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. I'm hoping for something and I'm just not getting it. It just makes me sick in my heart. But a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. Tree of life. Eden. That's where the tree of life is. And so what the writer of Proverbs is saying is we hope and we hope and we long and desire, and when those hopes are not fulfilled, we pine and we mourn Advent. And then when the hope is revealed and received, joy, Eden, a tree of life. That's what the writers are saying here. It kind of looks like this. Steve, I want you to show this video. Before you show it, I'm just going to paint the picture here. Before you play, just hold a second. Hold it. Just hold it for a second. Takes it to the back end. Stop. Okay. I just want to paint the picture of what you're actually going to watch before you watch it. So that's a picture of the Auburn football team in Americans marching band. And the whole film is just the marching band. That's all you're going to see. And they're sitting in the stands. And to paint the picture here, to get you in the picture, their football team is about to lose. The other team is about to kick a goal and win. So to put this in Australian rules terms, so I don't have to teach you the tediousness of American football. Imagine in an Australian rules football team, the game is almost over. The scores are tied. The other team has the ball and is about to kick a goal, and there's almost no time left and the game will be over. And the other team goes to kick the goal and they miss, and your team gets the ball and with almost no time left is able to get it down the field and kick a ball right on the siren and to kick the goal and wins. So here is this Auburn football team. Now you can show this video. They're preparing to lose.
56-yarder. Does not have the leg. And Chris Davis taking the back of the end zone. He'll run it out to the 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh my God! Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game. Auburn's going to win the football game. He ran the midfield goal back. He ran it back 109 yards. They're not going to keep him off the field tonight. Holy cow! Oh my God! Auburn wins. Auburn has won the Iron Bowl. Auburn has won the Iron Bowl in the most unbelievable fashion you will ever see.
Isn't that great? Isn't that a great video? It's one of my favorite videos. It fills me with chills every time. So those guys, they're hoping they could win, but really it's never going to happen. And then their hopes are received. And it's just joy. And the really impressive thing about that is that band, the professionalism of them, to play the team song instead of jump up and down, screaming, yelling. And a couple of guys, they just gave up and they're hugging and they're screaming. So that's the picture of joy, is that you have this hope, and you have this desire, and you have this longing, and then along comes the thing you hope for, joy. That's what it looks like. Now, in between joy and hope, or hope and joy, are these moments, these echoes which stir in us a longing for that which we hope for. So you think of a beautiful concerto, a meal of something you've never eaten before, the smile of a baby. Moments of joy which are little pointers to a greater joy, something better, something beyond. Because the problem is that the joys that we experience in life, and they are joyful, babies and concerts and marriages and all those things, they don't last. They fade away. And so although they're joyful, they're just somehow not enough. I think of music is one of the things that occurs to me in my mind about this. I search on a streaming application through hundreds and listen to hundreds of albums a week. And is that you? I stream through hundreds of albums a week, and 99% of it is just the same kind of thing, boring, not my style, I'm not interested in. And then I'll come across something and it's like, wow, that's the thing. That's the piece of music. That's what I really like. And I listen to the whole album and it's fantastic and it's great. And then I'll listen to it and it's a joyful moment. This is just great. You know, you're really wrapped in the music. And so then you listen to it again and it's 99% as good the second time as it was the first time. And the third time it's 95% as good. And by the time you've listened to it 20 times, And so I have all this music that I've got on my streaming service of albums that I haven't listened to for years. And when I do go back and listen to them, but they were such a great thing. And then the joy of that moment, that just doesn't last in this world. We as people will seek to find joy ultimately, and C.S. Lewis is right about this, in that which cannot satisfy, and then accept second best as a good enough substitute. I couldn't find that meal in the market, so I ate bratwurst. It's good enough, but it wasn't what I was looking for. And so this is the way we do this as well. When we can't find joy, real joy, we substitute it with happiness and pleasure. Now, happiness is a state of being fortunate. Christians call it being blessed. And so circumstances are working in our favor. God is working in our favor. And so if I went to Strasbourg, and if I could actually go to Strasbourg, and because my circumstances where I'm healthy and I have the money and I have the ability, I'd be very happy to go to Strasbourg. And if I was there, it'd be a very happy kind of thing. And while I was there, I would have all kinds of pleasure. Now, pleasure is much more fleeting. It's sensual. It's associated with our senses. And so while I'm there, I can have the pleasure of the market and the coolness of the air and snow, perhaps, and music and all those kinds of things. But all those things are fleeting. They won't last. The happiness of this life and the blessedness of this life and the pleasures of this life are all echoes of Eden. And yet if we don't see it this way, we will chase the fleeting pleasures and happinesses of this life and never find the real joy that it points to. And we will find that chasing after happiness is like trying to catch the wind. And chasing pleasure is a mug's game. Just when you think you caught it, it slips through your fingers. Read the book of Ecclesiastes. This will settle your head. It's an attempt to satisfy a desire that nothing in this world can satisfy. It's not that they're not good things, but they're not the ultimate thing. And so to go back to where I started, I think I can be a little easy on myself that I don't live a life of perpetual joy, because I don't think anyone can live a life of perpetual joy because we have not received in this life that which we ultimately hope for. I don't feel moments of exceeding joy all the time, but what I do feel is a continuing longings and hope for that which this world cannot satisfy. That I do, and every once in a while, joy wafts through the air. And I'm reminded of what's to come. And hoping for the right thing, and from time to time, the becoming conscious of that thing is Christian joy. Or to put it in words of the hymn writer Fanny Crosby, it's a foretaste of glory divine. So what is the Christian hoping for? What is this joy for which we hope? For which the joys in this life are but a pointer. And so now we'll look at Isaiah chapter 9. And I don't know as you were paying attention as Delene was reading through it, but you read all kinds of things in this: gloom, anguish, treated with contempt, darkness, shadow of death, yoke of burden, oppressed. This is an unnatural state. No matter your worldview, whether you're religious or not, these circumstances that the people find themselves in are not right. This is a prophecy that describes the circumstances in Israel at the time of their rescuer's birth. Now, you and I know that this rescuer will be Jesus. The people being occupied in Jesus' day are occupied by an invading army, enslaved to their demands, as well as under the heavy spiritual oppression of religious leaders who are not so much interested in the people as they are about padding their own lifestyle. To live like this is not right. We know this naturally. And the very fact that the world is obviously not perfect, and that these kinds of things occurred and have occurred and will continue to occur in the course of human history, is the first fact in defense of the church's doctrine and in favor of the Bible's doctrine of the fall. Things are not what they should be. People should be free to live their lives in prosperity, free from slavery and oppression and the burden of the yoke of occupying armies imposing cruelty on the people. We just know this. This goes back to what I was saying about an echo of Eden. The echo reminds us that this is not the way that things are supposed to be. To go back to my heritage, my American heritage, the founders of that liberal democracy, which became the foundation of all Western history's liberal democracy, they wrote in the Declaration of Independence these words: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights," meaning rights that cannot be taken from them. You have no right to take these things from them. Those things being the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And all Western democracies are dependent upon this kind of thinking. And what they were saying is that it's obvious that there's a God. And many of these men that wrote this weren't even Christians. They were deists. They believed there was a God, although they wouldn't have adhered to the Christian theology in any particular way. But what they were saying is if you look around, it's obvious there's a God, and that this God wants men to live life freely, unencumbered by harm. Gloom, anguish, treated with contempt, darkness, yoke, shadow of death, burden, oppressed. That is not what we are called to. It is self-evident that the world was not meant to be this way. One theologian says that every fact in the universe screams at the unbeliever, this is not the way things are supposed to be. And we know it deep inside. And that innate knowledge, that self-evident knowledge that the world should be one way, and it's a fact it is not, is an echo of Eden, a pointer to a story, a time long lost, a nostalgia, if you like, human beings collectively remembering and longing for a time that doesn't exist anymore. Well, that's the unnatural state, but the scripture here also highlights the hoped-for state. And this is what they hope for. They will see light. Light will dawn on them. They will rejoice and they will be glad and they will divide the spoil and the yoke will be broken. The enemy will be defeated and trampled down. Justice will be done. Justice will be done. The people pine and yearn and long in hope. It's the Advent season for the realization of the thing they desire. Remember that Proverb 13, verse 12, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled is a tree of life. And the means by which this tree of life will show up, the means by which justice will occur, the means by which their hopes will be received, chapter 9, verse 6, a child will be born for us. The coming child is the realization of the hope that these negative things will be made right. Now, this is a really important passage of Scripture, not only because it's a prophecy of Jesus, which it is, it tells you what the hoped-for state actually will be. All of these things being overturned and made right are a result of this child. This is the thing that we hope for. Now, this child is given in verse 6 4 titles: Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, and Prince of Peace. Now, this idea here in the context of Isaiah chapter 9 is he's speaking about a coming conquering warrior. And so this idea of wonderful counselor is not like you go to the counselor to help you with your emotional problems. This is about a war counselor, someone who's able to devise war plans and have them succeed. And so I've highlighted the text in the way I've done it here. Wonderful Counselor and Prince of Peace are essentially saying the same things, and Mighty God and Everlasting Father are essentially saying the same things. This is Hebrew poetry. This is how they would do their work. And so the Wonderful Counselor is this great war hero who is able to devise war plans and establish an eternal peace. And that's what the next verse 7 says: His authority shall grow continually, and there shall be endless peace. And so this idea of being the Prince of Peace means endless peace. This child will be this mighty warrior that will use great wisdom to beat the enemies of God's people and establish an eternal peace. And the other 2 names there, Mighty God and Everlasting Father, El Gabor. It's literally a deity name, that this child is somehow mighty God. And the idea of Everlasting Father is not God the Father as you would think here, but it's thinking in terms of Old Testament covenant law. And old ancient Near Eastern covenant laws, you would have powerful kings and less powerful kings who would join in an alliance. And the greater king in the alliance would be called Father, and the lesser king in the alliance would be called Son. And so this Everlasting Father is saying that this wonderful counselor who will establish peace, this God who is amongst us, is effectively the King of Kings. He's the most important king of all the kings. That's the meaning of these ideas here. Now, this is hinting at something really important. In fact, it's saying it if you see it. In chapter 9, verse 3, you have multiplied the nation, you've increased its joy, they rejoice before you. So why are they joyful? What is the joy here? What is the thing that they're longing for? Peace, loss of gloom, all those things, yes, but there's more to it than just that. And to find out, to be specific, and to make it plainly clear, the psalmist makes it plainly clear in Psalm 16, verse 11. You show me the path of life. In your presence, there is fullness of joy. In your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Or Paul in Philippians 4, verses 4 and 5, rejoice, the Lord is at hand. So what do we long for? What is the fullness of joy? What is the ultimate joy that all the other joys of this life are but a pointer to? We might say we get to go to heaven, that justice will be done, all those kinds of things. Yes, that's true, but that's not entirely it. Why would I want to go to heaven? To play a harp? It would be tediously boring. What is in heaven that is so attractive that there's fullness of joy? What is it that makes heaven heaven? It's the presence of the Father. It's the very presence of God. In His presence is fullness of joy. That's what it is that we long for. The fullness of joy is to be in the presence of the Father and His uninterrupted love. Jesus said to His disciples on that last night before He was crucified in John 14:28, if you loved me, you would rejoice that I say I am going to the Father. Because that's the place of fullness of joy. And it would thrill you to know that that's where I'm going. Joy is the air we breathe in the presence of the Father. It's the water we swim in the presence of the Father. It's the entire environment because mankind is returned to the uninterrupted love and fellowship of the Father. Remember that Proverb 13, verse 12. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire fulfilled as a tree of life, and we walk in the coolness of the garden with God. That's what we're hoping for, to be in the uninterrupted presence of the very God who made us. And every little echo of Eden, every little sense of longing for something that this world cannot satisfy, and every joy we experience in this life are a nostalgic reminder of the joy for which we were made. I have two choices: to chase after temporary happiness and pleasure, which ultimately can never satisfy, or to rest my hope in the one who will eternally satisfy the deepest longings of my heart. What makes Christmas so joyful is that God showed up, which is what we are planning and hoping for all along. And in the form of a child to show us the way to the Father. And so all the toys and the meals and the gifts and the songs and everything we associate with this season are all pointers to a greater joy. The fullness of joy. The joy of being united once again with the Father. How silently the wondrous gift is given. So God imparts to human hearts the blessings of his heaven. No ear may hear his coming, but in this world of sin, where meek souls will receive him still, the dear Christ enters in, and the presence of the Father produces joy in the hearts of his children. Amen.